make it as much fun as humanly possible, and you're going to have a great team. One thing I didn't get back to was the working in the business. So I will say to every entrepreneur, the working on a business is extremely important. But working in the business is important as well. Don't lose touch of reality.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to this Wednesday episode of A Call to Leadership. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Every Wednesday, we cover a topic in leadership, whether it's business, family, or life. This episode is just for you if you've had or thought about embarking on an entrepreneurial journey and the stresses that you've either experienced or thought about experiencing. I've invited an expert in this area, someone who's experienced all of these challenges, Stephen Modesitt. I'm Dr. Nate Sala. This is A Call to Leadership. Stephen, so good to have you on the show. You know, I've been longing to have you on the program. We've been friends for so long, and obviously we work together in business. I so appreciate you being here today. Absolutely.
I'd love to do that. I'm actually excited about this.
It's going to be good.
Got a lot to vent.
Yes, yeah. Woosah. Yeah, this is actually therapy for entrepreneurs. No, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you come on, because it's so relevant right now, especially during the pandemic, post-pandemic, what's going on in the world. So many people are considering a change. Of course, there's this great resignation. People are having existential crises. They're thinking they're more than their jobs. And, you ventured into a new realm of entrepreneurship many moons ago. And I'd like to unpack this journey a bit for those who think it may be one way or another. You've suffered, you've struggled, you've had challenges, partnership issues, we've had health concerns. I mean, lots that happen along the journey. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
No, I really didn't, actually. I was, I don't know. You grew up as a child and you think, do I really want to? I saw my parents, my mom worked for a little bit, and then my dad was military. So it was a one-time job there. Went from there to Boeing or McDonnell Douglas, and that was it. One job. So no, I never really thought I want to be my own boss. That was never in the cards. And then one day I woke up and said, what am I doing? I can do more than what I'm being asked to do. Maybe I should venture down this path. And a lot of things led to that conversation and that decision. But
where were you at the time? And you were in corporate America?
I was. So I'll back up a little bit and just go, this happened around between 36 and 37 years old. I had a heart attack at 36 in 2007.
What prompted it?
The heart attack?
Yeah.
Poor diet, lack of exercise, stress. A lot of stress in my job. So I was with a payroll company. It's the largest in the country. You'll figure out who it is, which I wasn't enjoying my job. And I sat in a meeting on a Thursday. They had the pains, typical pains down the arm on the left side, and wasn't feeling good. Worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday drove to Springfield, Illinois, and it was actually a customer that said, you look really great. You don't look really well. What's going on? I said, no, I feel great. And I'm like, huh. Meanwhile, there's like an elephant sitting on my chest. And as I'm came back from Springfield, I had a 1-year-old and walked him up the stairs. And at that point, I didn't collapse, but I wasn't feeling good. Tuesday, I went to the hospital. They said you had a heart attack, and I was under the knife within 24 hours.
You had a heart attack the day before?
I had a heart attack on Thursday.
And you didn't go in until Friday?
I didn't go in until the following Tuesday. Yeah.
So you were living with this impaired heart?
Taking time bomb. So there was 99% blockage on my left ventricle. It was just not a good combination of things. And the surgeon went in, took the vent, took the stent, and put the pumps in. They cleaned everything up. Lots of medication. And I was 240 pounds at the time, and now I'm 170. Yes. There you go. Lost a ton of weight, did a lot of exercises, and reevaluated my life at that point. Said, what am I doing, and why am I doing it this way? What can be better? So it wasn't until the following summer, I guess it was this summer. It was either my son's first or second birthday, and some friends of mine came up, and they were just chatting and said, we don't understand why you don't start your own business. You'd be so much better if you were your own boss and just did your own thing. And I kind of thought about it, and it's like, you know what, you're right. So I did. So
wait a minute.
I know, right?
Slow. Hold.
I know.
Hold the phone.
I had a conversation with my wife. That was the first thing. So I sat down with Liz and I said, hey, what do you think? And she's so gung-ho and positive, and she's the rock in the family. I mean, she has a phenomenal job, and, income wasn't really a big issue. So we sat down, we actually prayed about it, went to church and talked to the folks there, and everybody said, yeah, you should have done this a long time ago.
So you had a community rallying around you.
Yeah, and they were great. And they really said, we think this is a good plan for you. So, yeah.
Well, so was this sort of ambiguous at the point? Was it still a discovery phase where you're like, okay, I'm built for the possibility of being an entrepreneur, owning my own business, I have the core competencies, if you will, for being an entrepreneur. I'm driven. I have, I'm intelligent. I have an understanding of what the world needs. I have a lot of skill sets that are marketable in an entrepreneurial context. I mean, you can go down this list, right? But the question still remains, how do I then transfer that into a utility, right? A brand proposition, some kind of a value statement that says, hey, come do business with me.
I think the driving force was the FUD. There's fear, uncertainty, and doubt in my abilities, because I'd been under the thumb for such a long time, and then it was just coming off the leash. It was like, I can go do this. I don't need to worry about end of month. It doesn't exist when you're an entrepreneur. Every day is the end of the month, which for salespeople, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years by that time, I didn't really worry about that. This was just a driving force of, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for a completely different reason. And the first company was One Source Communications, and it was a brokerage situation where I'd go out and broker deals between larger companies in the telecom space, and then the client or the end user. And that went really well. I was really enjoying it. We were making money finally, and I was kind of on my way at that point. And then I had a breakfast meeting with my former boss. And I can tell you where it was. We were down at Starbucks in Kirkwood. And we sat for a little bit, and he was telling me about what he was doing. I was telling him about what I was doing. And he said, maybe we should combine forces here and come up with a new company, which ended up being Connected, that combines both of our skill sets. He was management driven, and he was kind of the hardware, doing phone systems, but there were voice over IP. I was more of the brokerage side, where I was bringing the services in to kind of do all the things on that side, the other side. So again, sat down with my wife and said, what do you think? And she says, well, you know him very well. I said, I'm going to kind of test the waters and see what this looks like. So we closed 13 deals in the first month, and I thought, okay, this is going to be good.
So 13 deals with a new company?
Yeah.
So you formed the company.
We kind of put together something where it was a consortium of ideas. It was our two companies that were going to split the profits. But we were working on separate deals and brought them all together as one. And as we did this, after the 13th, that was August of 2011, we decided that maybe we should go a little bit further.
Did you quit your job? Had you quit, or are you still
No, working? I was long gone. I was One Source at that point. I was 100% in. And there's good stories with that too. So as I quit my job, daycare became an issue. And my son was 2 years old. So I would bring him along to appointments, and I'd sit him outside and with the receptionist or the secretary, whoever happened to be out there, and I'd go in, chat with the owner or the CFO, whoever I was meeting with, and then come back out. And they'd always come, oh my God, that's your son. And I'm like, yeah, the deal's done now. Andrew was my closing tool for a long, long time. It was great. But that was and then my parents obviously helped out. My mom was amazing because she would just jump in, as she always does.
So was there a lull period between quitting your job, your guaranteed paycheck.
Yes.
And how long was that? And what were you experiencing? I think that's important for people to hear that, because there's people
Sure.
listening right now who are there. They are where you were. They're super stressed out.
Yep.
They have health problems. They have stress problems. They have all kinds of issues. They got the paycheck and there's security financially, but they know it's unsustainable for the quality of life.
So 3 months, no paycheck. And then I would, if you're going to do it, have a year. Make sure there's a year's worth of salary or something in the bank. I had a 401k I could drop back into, which I did. I basically just cashed out. I took the penalty, which I know you told me not to do, but I did. But I knew I knew we would need it. Have sustainable expect to change your life. Number one, know that you can have all the thrills that you want. Understand that going in. Number two, make sure you have somebody or something that has a financial wherewithal there. As far as money goes, you got to make sure you have the cash to do it. You can't just quit one day and start the next and expect to be making the same what you're making. That does not happen. Not even to Facebook. Zuckerberg had some months where he was still in college and his parents were paying for everything. So the honesty, you're not going to go public. You're not going to make $1 million in the first week. You've got to understand that this is a process and it does take time. So 3 months, no paycheck. And then I remember getting my first check for one source, because it was, we sold the deal, then we walked into more money. But just know that you want to make sure that anything you do has a recurring revenue stream to it. That's the only way you really make money, which is what we did. The one-time pops are great, where you get a big chunk of cash, but you better hold on to it because you never know when the next one's going to happen. So as long as you understand your industry you're going into and have a really firm understanding of where you want to be, that you have to have a plan, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can't just walk out willy-nilly and hope the next day you're going to make a lot of money, because you're not. And we had a good, sustainable business plan, both companies. That was the first thing I did, was sit down and write one. What I want to do, where do I want to go, and how am I going to get there?
Man, that's key. I mean, I'm going to repeat that. Where are you? Where do you want to go? And how are you going to get there? And there's such an important relationship with that, and the planning piece. A lot of entrepreneurs want to ready, fire, aim, and that's okay in some contexts. But the planning aspect, I mean, you're just better with a plan. And I still teach entrepreneurship and business planning, intro to entrepreneurship. It's really creating a business plan.
Sure.
And years ago, I remember students often, it was a capstone course for one of the universities I taught at. And what that meant is it was a last class to capstone their entire learning experience. And interestingly, these is an undergraduate course, and it's an undergraduate program in business.
Yeah.
By the time most students got to this course, they usually were picking apart their employers, because they read all the books and said, oh, my employer doesn't do this right, doesn't do that right, oh, and this and that. But when they took that course and they walked through the steps of operations, human resources, finance, marketing, all the different pieces of organizing a business environment, and they put the plan together, almost all of them said, man, I appreciate my employer, because it is difficult, even on paper. To put it together. But once you begin to do that and assemble the understanding of, what does this business look like? Why am I in this business? What's the purpose of it? What is my justification for existence? Is there a real viable market out there? How can I stand out in the crowd? All of these questions, once you begin to answer that, flesh it out, it's planning. Yep. It's preparation, right? Because it is difficult enough without it. And with it, it actually does help you to begin to unroll, like, what are some of the roadblocks I know we're going to face?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I looked at, you do a lot of internal thinking. I mean, you really do think about what do you bring to the table as an owner? What are my skill sets? Well, I'm not an accountant, outsourced. I don't do HR, outsourced. What else can I outsource to make this business run efficiently and effectively, where I don't get in the middle of things? Yes. My banking needs, all of them. I chose one bank. I happen to have a wife who's a banker, so that's the bank we chose. But again, it was looking for those partners they're outside of my purview. So I knew what I was going to bring. I was bringing the sales, the energy, the drive. I knew that was me. But the rest of it, I don't want to deal with.
It's huge. You know, you worked in your genius zone. You know where you're your superstar. You know what your superpower is, if you will, and you stay in your lane. And here's one of my adages: do what you do best and outsource the rest. And what that does is it frees you from the encumbrances of not creating an experience that's exceptional. And I know that's important to you, is creating an exceptional experience, not only for business, but your entire life. I mean, and that's the thing about the entrepreneur's life. It's not just a compartmentalized sort of, this is my work, this is my family, these are my hobbies. It's all integrated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the point you make is really, really important, because oftentimes where I see a lot of people make the mistake is they wear all the hats. They say, well, I just can't afford it. I can't afford a partner in this particular area. And my pushback is, well, you can afford a cell phone. Why? Well, because it would be inefficient for me to actually have to go to someone's residence or business to have a conversation with them or mail a letter, right? Because it's a best practice to have a cell phone. Well, it's also a best practice to have the right attorney, the right accountant, the right partners in your industry where you have no business being in anyway.
Yeah. I think for me, it was also, again, sales. This is what I live and breathe. I mean, I've got a good skill set there. I have engineers that I went out and I found one of the best I've ever worked with. We also, when we start to hire other engineers, we intern them first, just to get a sense of. I mean, I guess that we were always told you can teach anybody anything, but it's the culture of the company is the one thing you can't teach. So the people that I brought on board fit the culture. We can teach everything else. So when we brought Phil in to be our lead engineer, he's young, really young, and but he's amazing. He's one of the smartest guys, and if he's listening to this, he'll probably go, "Yes, I am." One of the smartest men that I knew. I had another partner at the time. So to go back to the story of Connected. So I met my old boss. He was working with another gentleman, Steve, who we kind of took the ropes of the company. We're running with it. That was August of 11. Come September of 11, Jim, the old boss, said, "I don't want it. I'm done. I'm out." And there's lots of reasons behind that. Steve and I took the reins of the company at that point. Steve had a full-time job. I was working full-time for Connected. So he was my engineering guy. So we kind of worked. We tried to work his schedule, work our schedule. It wasn't really jiving, so we brought another engineer in. Steve and I were not taking paychecks from the company at all. We were setting up, we're getting everything put together. We pumped in money into the company, but we weren't taking any money from it. So we brought Phil in, and he was instrumental in getting the back office and the engineering portion of our company up and running, so the phone systems. And we brought in another gentleman who was going to be, he brought a little more seniority to the company, and then a couple salespeople, and as well as myself. It's been a mixed bag of good and bad there. Phil definitely, Hank really helped out initially when he was there. But you start to bring in those people, and it's not that you're going to promise them partnerships with the company. It's a paycheck for them, but it's the learning they're driving from it. So the company grew.
Well, let me just take a couple steps back.
Sure.
Because you mentioned partnerships, and it's really,
a
lot of people ask, do I get a partner? Do I not get a partner? When is it appropriate to have a partner? When is it not? And let me just preface before I have you jump in, because I know you have a strong opinion about this. Because from my seat, of course, over the years, in accounting and advisory, I'm I marry couples, if you will, in business, right? Yeah. They come to me, and so you've got these partners who are super excited because this is wedding day when they form their LLC or their S Corp or whatever it is what we're forming. And they're so giddy and happy to start this new relationship. Inevitably, more than stick together fail.
Sure.
Their marriages.
Absolutely.
And so there's some cautionary conversations around these relationships.
Absolutely. I would say know your partner as well as you know your spouse. That get I'm not saying get intimate with them as far as understanding what they're trying to derive from the business as much as you are. Because if that's not the same, then you're going to have problems. It's okay to have disagreements, and disagreements are good. They're good for a company to look and evaluate where you're going as a company. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't trust each other, it's game over.
Yeah.
I would say Jim leaving was one thing, and there was reasons behind that. Steve and I hit it off. Our families hit it off. Our kids are, they're called the three amigos. They're actually, what would you call them? They're like the three amigos. There was, they were just a year apart from each other, and they became that was great. And we did a lot of stuff with the families together. We got along great. But I knew deep down that Steve was going to be working full time because he had a full time commitment with a large family, and that was that. And I didn't have that, so he was going to be my silent partner, kind of my sounding board when I needed it. But for the most part, I knew I was going to be running the company, and I knew at some point I'd be buying him out. I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to be, and I think 5 or maybe 6 years in was that time to have that conversation to say, okay, we've got to this point. I know you're not going to be able to come in full time. I get it. The company's up and running with the staff that we have. Maybe it's time to have the conversation, which we did. And we parted with a financial settlement that both of us were happy with. And he has been, even today, we're still friends. We actually just got back from vacation together. We were down in Orlando doing Universal, I think. So we're still really close as families, maybe not as close as we were, but it's not it was a good partnership and really good for me because I got to see he's an engineer by trade. So I got to see it from his perspective, what do you really want from this? And we both had common goal as far as the company should go.
That's important.
Absolutely. You got to have that. If you don't, then that's not a partner.
No, and I love the way you frame it because some might say, wow, that intimate? Well, here's the thing about relationships, especially those types of, it's a true partnership. If vision and expectations are not clear and if they're not agreed upon, then the relationship will begin to go in a different direction.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is. Yeah. It could be a friendship. So, and these are universally applicable constructs in relational direction, right? And that's really what leadership is. Leadership is directional. So the way I've seen it, where partnerships start to fall apart, the vision wasn't clear and it wasn't agreed upon that they both wanted to go to the same destination. Obviously, you have to be going to the same place if you're going to work together, right, to get there.
Sure.
And then secondly, that the expectations were not either clear or they were ambiguous or they were different. Mm-hmm. In other words, one might have had an expectation that, well, we're both going to have the same amount of time invested and so on and so forth. And then one starts to say, well, in these 3 days a week, I'm actually going to do this thing. And the other one's like, well, I'm the one that's actually generating the revenue. And I'm the one that's dealing with the HR issue. And I'm the one that's having to put out fires and so on. So expectations begin to drift. But I love the way you described it as you knew at some point that you would both have an exit strategy that worked for both of you. Was that a difficult conversation?
It actually really wasn't. I think we weren't caught up in the moment of, I did all this work and you did nothing, or you did all this work and I did nothing, or whatever I've heard from other people who have gone through this. And I know a company, I'm actually going to seeing the guy next week, where he went through that, where it was partners and there's loggerheads. We didn't have that. We bounced around numbers, which you're supposed to do anyway. We both came to an agreement. I felt like it's one of those things where he wanted less than I was willing to give, and I wanted to give him more. And I know it sounds silly, but he brought a lot to that table, even though he didn't feel like he did. It wasn't an everyday thing for him, and I knew that. But he's genuinely he helped drive, even though he doesn't feel like he did, we wouldn't be off the ground without him. And I knew that. And so, I know every business person out there is going, oh my God, what are you, insane? But you have to look in the mirror every morning. And I feel good about the conversation we had. I think he feels good about it. And again, ultimately the friendship was more important. So I wanted to make sure that I covered what he wanted and a little bit more. And that's where we got to. Eventually I just said, no, we're going to do this and this is it. And it's hard for any business person to understand that, but I'm also very European because I'm from Europe. And that's how we view business. It's more of a community, conversation than it is just, I'm going to try and get one over on this person. That's not where my head ever is. It's, we worked hard together and ultimately we both need to be rewarded for it. So I will tell you that, and he never took a salary, and up until for the first 4.5, 5 years, I never took a salary from the company. That's another thing for entrepreneurs to know.
You bet.
So as your company grows, you have to, and again, you have to have money to do this. You have to understand that there are many different ways to go down this path. Partners are great. If you've got partners and they understand that this is where you're going to go, and the partners bring a value add to the table, and it's 100% commitment, then maybe you're talking salaries for everybody. If you're looking for investment dollars, this is where it gets a little more tricky. So we never took investment from an outside source. We've done this, oh my gosh, I always say with sticks and bubble gum, but that's what it felt like sometimes. There was a lot of times where you pay Peter to pay Paul, which is never fun for a business owner. But we did. We tried to just take the income we were earning and then pay from that. Is it stressful? That adds a larger complexity of stress, as you all know. But we got to that point where now we're at a different point now, where we actually have we're generating a lot more income. So therefore, we're not as dependent upon revenues from other places. So we didn't take the partnership on from outside sources, although that is an option. But just know that there's an expectation comes along with that from those outside sources. They want their money back and then some.
Right. And not only are you in a situation to where you're not taking a paycheck, if that's sort of the model. Some people will say, well,
not a fun one, but
right.
It was a model.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the alternative is we've got to finance our paychecks, right? But there's another factor too. Other people have to get paid.
That was more important to me. I wanted to make sure that if I've got a team that's on board and they're working their butts off, which they were, then they need to be paid. They were getting paid before I was getting paid, because that's the way it should be. We were never in the business of hiring and then not paying salaries. I can probably tell you and probably shouldn't tell you, but yeah, I borrowed against our savings account, our checking account, to move that money across into the company to make sure payroll was met and then move the money back. Right. There are loans against my personal finances that went to the company, and we did it because we needed to get it done.
Because you had to make payroll.
I absolutely had to make payroll.
This is probably the fundamentally consistently scary part of being an entrepreneur, that every scrappy entrepreneur who's been in the trenches and been against the wall can share a very similar story of knowing that day or that number of days or that season or that number of seasons where it's like, oh crap.
Yep.
I need to figure out how I'm going to make payroll.
And we did. And again, I'm fortunate that we had some financial resources available to us.
You had some reserves.
We did. We had to. So that goes to Mama Modesitt. My wonderful wife was very smart and very diligent at putting money away every month, and we were able to fall back on that a little bit. So knowing that it is one of the scariest things as an entrepreneur you ever deal with, because you're waiting for checks to come in from others to get paid. And those checks sometimes come in and sometimes don't. When they don't come in, what do? You're scrambling. So again, it's having that reserve sitting there to go, it's okay.
So the financial piece it's such an essential
Yeah.
piece to this conversation. And it reminds me of when Steve Jobs came back to Apple. They were 90 days from insolvency. This was back in 97. And one of the first things he did was brought back on a CFO who he knew and trusted, who would help him to get the financial backing necessary to get this engine moving. And of course, lots of other parts, right?
Right.
But we cannot underestimate the essentiality of this, because a lot of folks go into it and say, well, I got this great idea, or I've got this, super cool skill, or so many people want to do business with me, or blah, 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 right? They're not thinking about the money. They're not thinking about the margins. They're not thinking about what they have to actually bring in to break even.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are like that's so important. And I say that because not only from my perspective, because I see, like, when you work with your accounting firm, like, you're pretty much naked. Like, everybody else can see the smoke and mirrors, but we see what's really going on, right?
And he looks and goes, what are you doing?
We see what's really going on. And so often, people are struggling in that area, and not necessarily because it's a bad market. Sometimes it is, but because that front end preparation wasn't there. In your case, you're like, okay, if I have this bucket, and this bucket, and I can tap into those buckets, then yeah, it's going to be scary. Yeah, it's going to be stressful, but I know that I have that option. Or I've got great banking relationships, or I can go get a credit line, or I've got this asset I can leverage. Look, that stuff is probably going to happen.
It definitely happened in the last 3 years over COVID. I mean, PPP money was wonderful and it helped float. The simple reality was that it wasn't even so much that we were struggling, because we actually grew, but it was our other customers, our client base was taking a hit. And so we tried to help offset some of that by offering we actually went out and discounted our monthly services for a vast majority of our customers and said, look, we know the struggle, so let's help a little bit. It's as little as, it's not going to, we try to be good. So we helped as much as we could, but we knew that at some point we're going to go back and reverse that. Hey, we come out of PPP, we came out of the COVID, the big portion of COVID. Now we got to bring our dollars and cents back into line, but
bring back people to market rate.
We did. Yeah. But we didn't let anybody go. We actually hired during COVID, which was like mind blowing to me, but we did it.
Do you attribute any of that? You had mentioned earlier about your culture, and you and I have had discussions around culture and how important the foundation for your value statement, your value proposition is around the health of your culture. Let's walk through that. Was that something that was pre-business formation? You're like, okay, here are our core values, here's our mission, our vision, or was it organic as it developed? How did you establish culture? And let's break down also how it's helped you to navigate.
So I think it was a combination of both. I think we started off with what don't we want to be? And so we had a list. I don't want this. I don't want, and there's certain things throughout the whole, I never saw the use, this is just going to sales. I never saw a 30-day sales cycle. I thought that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I didn't really see the need to kind of push at the end of a month to try and get a deal in when the deal could fall flat the following month. Companies don't work that way. They're going to work the way they want to work. They're going to buy from you when they need to buy. It's not going to be whenever I want them to buy. So we're not going to force products on people's throats. That was the other thing. That was number two. So a deal that somebody would try and push in within 60 days may take a year with us, but when they buy from us, they know they're buying the right product, the right services, et cetera. So that was important to me, that we just don't kind of slam these things in. I think number two, and probably the most important thing for us was, we wanted a place where people want to go to work. And you hear that from everybody. But the reality is I should never say this, but I don't track vacations. I don't know when my team goes on. I know when they go on vacation, but I don't know how many days they're taking. And we actually did an audit last year just because I wanted to kind of see. And I think we start off at 3 or 4 weeks of vacation, and there was not one person in the company that took that. They have it. They can use it whenever they want to. They just don't. And I think it's one of those things where they know it's there, but they can use it. We don't say use it or lose it. You just use it whenever you want it. It doesn't roll. They just get it every year. Not one of them took the full whack. For another thing, I don't care where they work. They can work from home. They can work at the office. They can work on their cars. I don't care. They can be sitting in Hawaii on a beach with a Wi-Fi signal, and they want to work there. Great.
So stop right there, because you got someone listening right now who's saying, "That's insane. I couldn't trust my people."
You got to trust. So that is you're hiring them, and there's a reason why you hire them. And if you don't trust them when you hire them, then don't hire them. I trust my team, and they gave me every reason to trust them. I've never, ever doubted their skill sets. So they wouldn't be there if they weren't brilliant. But they also bring that sense of understanding where the company wants to go and how we're going to get there. And we have lunches together. We bring in lunch for everybody every Friday because that's kind of their thing. And they always buy the stuff that I don't like, so I won't eat it. But anyway, they all have credit cards in the company, everybody. When we have a support ticket, it goes to everybody in the company. So support goes to the entire team. That includes sales and myself. We used to do a lot more community stuff. When Star Wars released a new movie, we all went to the movies and had dinner afterwards. That was on the company dime. We do stuff together as a team because we think it's important for team building. But these guys are, at least in the network engineering team, they go out and do stuff together outside of work. They have a bowling league. They have a bowling team. They just do stuff, and it's Dungeons and Dragons to whatever. I mean, they are phenomenal engineers. I mean, they really are the best in the business, and I know that. And I'm very fortunate to have them. But they all like each other, and I think that's probably the most important thing is that they keep the accountability is held between them. I don't have to, it's not downward pressure from me, although sometimes I will. If I see something like, hey, what's going on here? But I do it in a way that I'm not accusing. It's more of where can I help, or do you need my help for any of this stuff? And they look at me like, are you an engineer, Stephen? No, I didn't think so. So,
and you don't take offense to that?
I do not. Good God, no, because I'm not. And they know
Right.
But I just want to make sure that and I will make them take mental health days. If I see them stressed out, get out and go do something else. You need a day off, go. Again, vacation is vacation. Nobody worries about that, or they shouldn't. And if you're listening to this, please don't worry about vacations. But they don't take advantage of it. They know, the accountability is between the 3 or 4 of them that work there. So they know, they know where one person is and where the other person is. And if they can take the vacation on the same day, they manage their time and their efforts brilliantly.
Yeah.
So I never worry about them. I used to worry.
Well, and you bring that up, and that's good.
I can get to, the crazy part is I knew I was in good hands when I could take a vacation and not worry about what's going to happen at the company.
Doesn't that feel good?
It's amazing.
Yeah. There's really almost no better feeling
Best
from
day
an
ever.
organizational context than that feeling.
Yeah.
There is when you know your team can handle it,
Mm-hmm.
and they do. And so probably for the last decade, this resurgence of flattening organizations. There's a book called Holacracy, which is this concept that Zappos kind of bought into, which it's essentially, it's an old concept, self-managing, self-directing teams. And there's quite a beauty around it when the processes are in place and the organizational construct is healthy with the directives. But also a big part of that, and I suspect that you fall into this category, is that you are not willing to skimp on the quality of person that you have working on your team. In other words, there's a B and a C team, and then there's an A team. Yep. Steve Jobs constantly talked about A players. You hire the B and C team, you get B and C team results. Now, granted, it's not that you can't coach someone up and help someone along the way, but A players are a distinct group of people. They're the people who can and will hold each other accountable in a team to accomplish great things, and they don't require the type of supervision necessary in organizations that are going to keep from having the highest quality people on the team. And I say that to say, if you're the kind of business leader who does not want to micromanage, you have to have self-starters. You have to have people who are problem solvers, not problem starters. You have to have people who are committed not only to the end result, but committed to the process. Mm-hmm. And also, here's what I also explain with A players, what's so beautiful about them. They will help you solve problems you did not even know you had.
Mm-hmm. That's going on right now, actually. Funny you bring that up. So my, I guess, director of the NOC, he is right now. We have it's an issue, and it's actually something new that we've never run into. So he's actually working through. It's like a puzzle for him, and I think he likes puzzles. So he's got a puzzle, and he gets a little stressed with it, but he wants to resolve it. And every time I say, hey, if we need to bring in this team or these other outside elements, feel free to pay the money for it. It's fine. But he just has that mentality of, no, I'm going to try and figure this out myself. And if I can't figure out, then I'll go to them. But that's his, and he's the leader of that team. So his team sees him doing things like that. So all of a sudden that translates to, okay, we can do this ourselves as well. And then it goes all the way down. So it's infectious throughout the company. And it's nothing that I'm bringing to, I bring a minor piece of that, or if I have an issue, I'll try and figure it out. But he definitely, more than anybody else, if there's something he wants to figure out, he's going to find a way to figure it out and try to do it himself. So, yeah, that's the kind of people that I have working for me. They're just, they try to do things themselves before trying to bring in others to help them, which is good. I mean, there are good and bad elements to that, but it's that kind of mentality that, because once he figures it out, then he shares it with the team, and then the team is able to kind of learn from that, and they bring things back to him. So it's a two-way street, which is the way it should be. Or if they do have problems, then my office is pretty small, and they just yell back and forth to each other, which is hilarious. But
until they solve the problem.
Until they solve that problem.
Yeah. Well, and that also speaks to what we call efficacy, right? Yeah. How much I believe I have control over my motivation, my behavior, my social environment.
Well, we had a policy when we started the company that, we didn't want our customers to wait. When you call in to our office, within 30 seconds, you've got somebody on the phone. That was kind of the thing. The email response is within a certain amount of time as well. And when I asked them, I said, so why do we want to do this? The response was, because we just want to off our plate. We don't want things waiting. And I sat there and went, why can't other companies do this? I'm thinking of like when I call the credit card companies or anything that takes 3-4 hours to get stuff done. And they're like, no, we just want it done. And then we know the client's happy because we fixed the problem, but it just gets off our plate and we can move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing. And there was a book, this goes back, and it was the multitasking. Is multitasking really, why multitask when you should complete one task and move on to the next task and move on to the next task? And that's what my team does. I mean, they can multitask to the days long, but they like to get those things done fast, and then they're done. And they're not worrying about them, except for the bigger projects, obviously, which take a little bit longer. But they are, and that I think that is one of the driving forces for them. They like to be accomplished and feel like they've done a really good job that day.
Sounds like it. Now, every business has challenges with people too. Yes. Have you ever had to let anyone go?
Yes, I have. So the first person we ever let go it's been sales, actually. 2 salespeople that we had to let go. The first one was a case of the gentleman didn't sell anything in a year. I take that back. He sold 2 accounts in 1 year.
What would you like? How many accounts are your sort of your minimum that you would expect for a year?
Well, it's just because we were a brand new company. I expected like one a month kind of deal.
Okay, so
nothing crazy.
really far off.
Yeah. So the crazy part about that was that we actually had booked a trip to go out, and it was a real business trip. It really was. I know you saw that one. What are you doing? But
I know. I remember.
Yeah. So we took this company, except for one person stayed here, a local, and we went to Hawaii for it was the AAO, the Orthodontists National Convention. And we rented a house with another company, and we had a fantastic time. About 4 days after that is when we let him go. He actually went on the trip, and then he brought his wife, but they had to pay for their spouses. We didn't pay for that. But yeah, unfortunately, that wasn't going to cut it. So we had to let him go. And then the second person I let go was a very nice lady, but didn't like our sales director at the time. And she called him a lot of really bad names. And that was in front of me. And I said, I'm sorry, we can't have that. And that was is it cultural maybe? It was also bad language, a lot. So anyway, we let her go, and she ended up landing on her feet. Funny enough, she actually asked me for a reference, which I thought that was hilarious. But she ended up with another company in St. Louis, and that's fine. But those are the only two. We have had people leave. Our first engineer went off to go work for my business partner. He actually had a full-time job with one of the largest cable providers in St. Louis. You can guess which one. He has a phenomenal job there. He's like way up the food chain. And he brought our lead engineer in. I think he had run his course with us. He was ready to go do something else. He needed a different challenge. He had trained his replacement, and they're still friends today. They're really, really good friends. We still, in fact, Phil him and his wife just had their first baby, so we're still in contact. There's no badness there. I was a little miffed at the time, but now you get over it, and I was happy to be instrumental in helping him get that job over there because he needed to go and do something that he wanted to go do. And then the last two happened over COVID, where we had we'll leave that alone because it's something I'm trying to unpack myself.
Sure.
It wasn't handled the way it should have been handled.
Yeah.
So we started we had two companies. I was a partner in both. Obviously I run and own Connected, but the other side of the house decided they wanted to do their own thing, which is fine. I totally get it. But it's what happened during that process and afterwards has been a little bit like, really? Very, not the way you conduct yourself in business.
Right.
But I think the less said about that, the better, because it's nothing that the lawyers are involved in. It's nothing legal. There's nothing really I can do about it. It's just a very frustrating part for me. But the one gentleman who helped Connected for a long, long time doing things, he left and he went with the other partner to start this other company. Yeah. So it was, it didn't really rock my boots until they started doing silly things. And, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm breathing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a frustration. It still is, but
it's part of the growing pains.
It is. It definitely, we're going to be,
because you could have stayed small and kept it all, as they say, but you don't. That's not your vision for the company.
No. We actually, I know I was never going to be an AT&T. Never wanted that. Never wanted to be one of the larger providers. I wanted to get to a point where we were comfortable and we were growing, which is where we are now. We've lost some of our customer base during the COVID side, and then obviously with this departure of these two, they kind of snuck in the back door and took a few customers from us, which is part of a little bit of a really, but that's a trust thing. I think that comes down to not really that I thought I had trust with them when one worked for me, the other one was a partner with me. It turned out they were doing things behind the scenes that I was unaware of, and so that becomes the sneaky part of business, which everybody gets their comeuppance in St. Louis, especially. It's a very small town. It's a city, but it's a small town because we all know each other, especially in the business community. So the whole backstabbing thing, it will come back and bite you in the butt. So it's
well, it's a matter of integrity.
Absolutely, and they didn't have any, and so it is what it is. As I say, the less said about that, the better.
Yeah, no doubt. It's all part of the playbook anyway, as an entrepreneur, right? Yeah. So it
you
adds
have
to the
to
playbook.
you know who you're getting into bed with. You get to know who you are, and I know who I am as a person. I know what I want for this company. I know where we want to go. They didn't share the same vision I did, and in the end, it ended up a good thing. So we lost a few clients that really, honestly, I wasn't quite sure about to begin with, but we took them out. We took them on. Now they're with them. That's great. So now it's move on, keep going, and we'll grow beyond. So
as you grow, and this is an important transition, so great leaders in business begin to fire themselves from the technical work that inhibit them from working on the business rather than in the business. We had a little conversation about this before we started our episode. What does that mean to you?
So it's funny. That's always the question. I work with I've been talking with that other company, and that's always the question they ask is, do you work on or in? And for a long time, I didn't really understand the difference. What do you mean? I'm in both. I think as I've gotten, we're 10 years old as of last year. We're going to be 11 years old this year as a company. My focus is changing quite a bit. I'm bringing in people to kind of take care of things that I typically took care of. Sales is one thing for sure. I brought in a director of sales, which has been great. Jeff has been, he's sidelined today, unfortunately, he had some surgery, but he's starting to bring in a different thought process that I don't have. I'm more of a go get it, get out there and go get the deals.
You're a rainmaker.
I am. He's more of a, listen, we can bring it in through other partners and other ways and other avenues. So that's been a transition for me. So I'm trying to get away from the selling part of it as much as I can, which I know is almost impossible for any entrepreneur worth their salt should be out selling your business. That's your job. It's not even, people don't pay you for that. That's what you want to do because it's your passion. So your passion is, I want to make my business grow. You've got to be a pretty damn good sales rep to go out there and do that.
I couldn't imagine even at this stage, like, any entrepreneur, even at the highest level, like a Richard Branson, being dispassionate about Virgin Airlines, right? Or whatever
absolutely.
It is that he's invested in. Even at that level, even if you're not directly involved in the day-to-day.
You are involved in sales of some. You're handing your business cards. You're saying, look at me, and you're doing podcasts.
Right.
So
I'm so dispassionate about this. No, they want to know. They want to know if you're bought in.
Absolutely. So that was, so for me, it's working on the business is going to be things like this, where I'm talking about the business. I'm moving the needle forward and moving the company forward in the direction we want to go. Rewriting the business plan every year is part of working on the business, understanding the historical data from 19 and 20, and how it's going to relate to 21 and 22. And seeing, the progression. So we did take a massive step back. How do we get back to pre-COVID times? And how do we move beyond COVID times? That's working on the business. So what can I do within the business to make it generate more income? Where are we going to start generating income from? So it's, we were a fully functional hosted phone system provider, using voice over IP, buying hardware, selling. Well, what other services can we offer to our customers? Is it IT services? So do we partner with that or bring it in-house? Who are we going to partner with? And I just signed a partner agreement, actually. Where do we want to go with this? Do I want to look at government services, GSA side, the state level? Do we want to start selling to that space? And what do we want to sell into that space? So for me, that's working on the business. It's also direction. It really is directional. It's really focusing on what the next, I'm not going to say 5 years because that's too far ahead, but what's the next year going to look like? Are we going to hire just in St. Louis? Are we going to hire in North Carolina? Are we going to hire on the East Coast or West Coast? Are we going to bring in sales from around there? it's those kind of questions you have to ask yourself every year and every month, actually, for that matter. Is this the time to do what I want to do? Do we have the financial resources to do it? Do I want to bring in more money? Where do I want to generate it from? Is it going to be, well, now you got crowdsourcing, which is really an interesting proposition. Do you want to look at that? Is crypto something we should be looking at investing in? There are all these variations of things for the company as a whole we have to look at and figure out, is this the play that we want to make today, next week, a year from now, what is 6 years from now? Whatever it is, you need to have that understanding. And then also find the right partners to explain it to you. And I think that's the thing I don't have a problem with. If I don't know something, I'll go ask somebody who knows. I'm fortunate with Ted, by the way. Ted is my accountant that works for Nate. So we
call him the professor.
He really is. He's so bloody smart. But he, if I have questions, then I'll send them to you and to him and say, okay, explain this to me. ERC was the last thing, what does this really mean? So you have to.
That's so important because a lot of people try to just scrap it out, figure it out themselves.
The internet doesn't know all.
That's exactly right. And there's a lot of erroneous information. Yeah. That's why you got to have pros in your corner who you can just call on. And honestly, and really the cost benefit ratio, it makes sense every time.
It's 1,000 to 1. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you don't have the right people in your corner, pack up and don't do it. I mean, I'll tell this to any entrepreneurs listening or anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur. If you don't have the right people who are, maybe not as passionate as you are about your business, but definitely have your best interest at heart, forget it. Just walk away because you're going to fail miserably. We always talk about restaurants, and restaurants are one of those things that the failure rate is what? I think 75%.
Yeah, it's high. It's, I think, one of the highest failure rates.
They don't get a lot of bank loans because of it, but it's
and most accountants don't even want to work on.
No, they run away as fast as they can.
It's a headache.
So, not to say restaurants aren't good. Don't get me wrong. I love restaurants,
and we need them.
We do absolutely
great restaurateurs.
Absolutely. But it's one of those things where they go out and they find the right people. They find the best chef in town. They find the best people to come work for them. Because if they don't, then they're going to fail miserably. And that's how I look at my outsourced team. And it really is it's an extension of our company. So when I said about, my payroll, I don't do. I handed that off to my former company, ADP. When I wanted the accounting stuff, I came to you and your team. When I want internet, I go to AT&T for my internet because they offer the best product out there. So products and services are extremely important to any entrepreneur. You can't do all of it. You have to outsource as much as you possibly can. Again, knowing what you're best at is the best thing you can do. Could I have outsourced the phone system side and went through a third party and did? I could, but I didn't want to do that because I thought that the care and the services we offer as a company far exceed anything I'd seen on the marketplace and still do. And I'll put myself up against anybody else out there. We really blow everybody else out the water because of what we can do. So if you're looking for a phone system, give me a shout.
We'll definitely make sure people can find you. And that's the heart of business. I mean, all business is problem solving.
Yeah.
And the way
sales there is good.
You like that? I love it. Well, here's the thing about it is that we spend so much time trying to figure out who can help us solve our problems. And once we find someone in a specific area, we want to set it and forget it. We want to go to company, a go-to individual, right? Because then I'm done searching. So my philosophy is just be that person, be that company in that industry, own the space to give exceptional experiences. Doesn't mean there won't be hiccups. Doesn't mean that there won't be some challenges along the way. Of course, that's because we're in a world that has challenges. And,
absolutely.
And if there's always going to be people in the world, there's always going to be mistakes, missteps, right? But that's all part of the experience. But here's what's really important is that if you approach your day solving relevant problems with excellence, and you're able to accomplish that. And what do I mean by excellence? I mean, excellence in the communication, excellence in the deliverables, excellence in how we form our teams and how we create a vision, a mission and values, as you said, right? Excellence in my attitude as an entrepreneur, because people are looking at you. They're looking at you as the business owner, as the leader, and they're deriving where this ship is sailing to.
Absolutely.
And you better be pretty sure that you're confident about the expectations you set and ultimately where you're going as an owner.
Yeah.
And see, so you do that. You do that very well. Because when you go in, you know what, guys, I can help you solve these problems. Mm-hmm. In fact, I can say this. I'm a customer, right? And so I had a problem, right? And so I'm like, Stephen, I got a problem. I got you. We'll take care of all this, right? And ultimately, gosh, man, thank goodness, right? Because I'm in such a better place today than I was.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. And to your, to your credit, you built this so that you can create exceptional experiences. And so if we can focus on that as leaders and entrepreneurs, is, what kind of experience, here's the other thing, and it's not just a customer experience, it's all my stakeholders. Right. Expand it out, right? Because we spend so much time talking about the customer experience, and that's important, but that's a lagging experience, right?
There's an internal customer experience that's probably just as important. I mean, if your team is not happy or not as passionate about their work environment, where they come to play every day, I mean, a third of their life is spent in the office. So make it as much fun as humanly possible, and you're gonna have a great team. One thing I didn't get back to was the working in the business. So I will say to every entrepreneur, the working on a business is extremely important. Working in the business is important as well. Don't lose touch of reality. That happens to a lot of CEOs, is that you get so wrapped up in non-operational things for the day. You're busy working on these different projects and things that are on the business that you forget what is actually going on in the business. And I will tell you that as an owner of this company, my number one thing is I want to make sure my team's happy, which I do. Hopefully, do a good job, and they'll tell you one way or the other. I think I do a good job. They all seem happy. But I think the other thing is the client side of it and making sure they're happy. And I do like to get out time to time and just go down and see clients. I'm actually going to finish here. I'm going to head down to go see a brand new client. It's just so I understand the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to make sure that the good experiences are there, anything that could be better. And I do ask them. I'll ask every client, what could we have done better, and where would you think we can improve? And then what went south, if there was anything. If there was something that went really bad, I need to understand what that was and how can we fix it. And I ask their opinion. I want to know if maybe they've experienced this with their own product set. It's never the worst thing in the world to ask for help. And the nice thing about entrepreneurs and owners of companies is that they love to talk about their businesses. So ask them. Don't be shy. I'm actually I've got another one I'm going to see. I meet my businesses, but I go out and I have breakfast with them, or I'll have lunch, and I'll ask them how they're getting on, what's going on in their world, and how can we help? It's always the first question. How can we help you get better? Where can we help you improve? And then the other question is, what are we doing? And they'll ask me, what are we doing? And we say, oh my gosh, it's, as I tell them, I had hair when I started. I don't anymore. It's all gone.
But you're building rapport.
You absolutely have to. And, we once went through this, it was funny enough. We used to go through this deal where we had, basically, you want to bring everybody on. As a entrepreneur, the goal is get as many businesses in the door as quickly as humanly possible, generate income. That's going to be a good thing. And now you get to a point where you can be a little more selective. And that's what we are right now as a company, which is great. So we don't bring everybody on. There are certain customers or companies where if they're not very nice and we know they're going to be a real pain in the derriere, we have to think twice. Maybe this is not the right customer for us. And we know that within the first 10 minutes of meeting them. So, we're not always going to bring on businesses. It's not that we won't bring on customers because the person we met was having a bad day, but you'll know pretty quickly it's the pain points they have are something we're trying to solve. And as long as they understand that we're here to solve and not hinder their business, that's a good thing. But we've been very fortunate in that just about every customer that I have, one, we're on a first name basis with them. That's extremely important. We can talk to them to the point, actually, I can tell you a story here. And this goes to my team, is that we actually had a customer that the person who we worked with over the course of the many years, I think they're still a customer, actually showed up in the wedding party of my lead engineer when he got married. That's the relationships I want. It's not just a Christmas card, which we send every year. It's beyond that. I want to make sure that they are the happiest people on earth. And my team, and it's, again, finding those right people in there. That's what they aim for. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss, but most of the time it's dead on. So we want that relationship where it's not just, I may not know them personally, but I'll get to know them. And there's a lot of clients here in St. Louis that I could name that you're going to say, oh, I know them. There are other clients that left us for various reasons, but
they just weren't the best fit.
They really weren't. They decided to go. It was about cost savings and not about the exceptional service.
And there's
they came running back.
Well, it's important. That's good to know. It's important that you bring that up because when you discuss the best fit for a relationship, you're also talking about setting up the kind of boundaries and borders in your organization that lead to exceptional experiences even within the company,
yep.
Right? And so it's so important to do that. Like you said, initially as a new entrepreneur, me too, man, it was like, hey, I got to make sure that I get some money in the coffer, right?
Absolutely.
And then, of course, later I was more discriminating in terms of creating the best experience for both the customer and my internal staff and all my stakeholders. And I think it's a responsibility of leadership to set everyone up for success.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, if you don't, then you're going to have a lot of disgruntled employees who don't want to deal with the people that you're bringing in, and that ultimately leads to a lot of turnover, which you don't want.
Unhappy customers.
I can't get the service I want. You get the lowest. You go from the A team that you had down to the C team you don't. So that was never something that we ever wanted to do. Is always we want to give exceptional customer service. We want to give exceptional service to everybody, and so far so good. It's been really we've been very fortunate. I will say, I got a phenomenal team, and I'm very, very. I know how lucky I am because I know the opposite of that because I worked for a few companies that had that. So.
No doubt. Well, and then I think one of the takeaways is having a system and a checklist for that right fit.
Yeah.
And that way you can resist the urge to, oh boy, I just need to take this person on. And when you realize, well, you know what, it's just not a fit for both of us based on these criteria. And I think that you would have a better experience with one of my colleagues. I don't even call them competitors, really. I call them colleagues, somebody else in the industry who can better serve your needs, right?
We've done that.
Yeah, and that's okay. And that's actually a point where you can gain even more respect in the industry because you're again back in your lane where you can give the best possible experience to those who are your best qualified to serve.
Yeah.
Now, as we close, I want to transition to an area that is equally important in business because, as you know, the entrepreneurial life is not just about being at the office. As entrepreneurs, one of the challenges that we face, which can be a blessing and a curse, is you can never really, quote unquote, clock out, right? I mean, look, your business is your baby.
Oh, absolutely.
And at some level, it's always on your mind, and it flows and spills over into life. It spills over into family life, raising a family. You talked about your faith earlier. It flows into, your spiritual life and your community. Let's just kind of unpack that a little bit. How have you integrated this wonderful world of entrepreneurship with being a dad, a husband, a man of faith?
Man, oh man, that's a great question. I think for me, it came down to having a strong, I got a very strong family.
And I know your family,
yeah,
at least
do.
Your immediate family,
yeah.
And they are very, you have an amazing family.
Thank you. So outside of, my wife, who is just the rock of our family, I mean, don't get mushy-eyed here, but she really is. She's just amazing. I mean, we're 25 years married this year. So I have an amazing son he's 14 going on 15 and freshman in high school. Oh, Lord, where does time go? They have been amazing because I've dealt with the challenges. They know when I'm stressed. They know when I'm not. I know when she's stressed and when she's not. So we've been very fortunate in that we know when we need to get away. And I think that's probably the most important thing is that you can work on your business as much as you want, but the end of the end line for any entrepreneur is, what do I really want from this? What is this really what am I doing with this? Is it just a means to an end where in 5 years I want to sell out and hopefully somebody will pay me a lot of money for the company? Is it a lifetime goal where you just want to have your kids take over the business at some point? So that's number one, having those goals. You got to figure out who you are. But as far as the work-life balance goes, it's gotten easier as the company's gotten older. Initially, no, it was just run, gun, make as much as you possibly can, get as many businesses as you can, and knowing that I told you earlier, the one thing we used to do was I would go to appointments, and my son was, I think, 3. He was before daycare, and we had to balance the daycare thing because I wasn't bringing in enough to kind of cover daycare costs. My mom could handle AJ for a little bit, but she's a little bit older, so we didn't want to always burden my parents with it. So, and my wife's parents don't live here; they live in Florida, so that was out. So it was balancing that work-life thing of, I'll bring him along to some appointments, I won't bring him to other ones, and then, it's that the balance is really difficult. That's what I'm trying to say here. And
is it even a balance? I've thought about that.
It is not a balance.
Yeah.
No, it is
we use the term, but
there's no such thing. It's a scale that just tips one way or the other. So I would take him to appointments, quite honestly, if I needed to, and he's gone to lots of different things with me. So, and that was fine. That worked just fine for a long, long time. Then he went to school and everything got better. That's not true. Because but I think the biggest thing is you have to, one, figure out what you want to do with it. Number two, get away whenever you can. If you can take a break from your work life, and if it's a vacation, that's a staycation or whatever it is, turn your cell phone off. That's actually a thing in our house. We leave them on silent overnight. We used to have them not by our bedside tables, but then my wife got addicted to TikTok, and that's out now. But actually, it's really funny. Some of the stuff on there is hilarious. But anyway, I digress. You have to understand that business runs from the time that you set to the time that you end, and you have to make sure that those things are in place. The other part of that is that your customers need to understand that. You don't want customers calling you 3 and 4 in the morning. That's not a life. That's just an existence. So you've got to create that balance, and it is a balance there with life, is that you have to let them know, hey, you've got me from here until here. Anytime between here and here, I'm not going to work. I won't answer the phone, so don't call me. A lot of salespeople make that mistake. I was one of them for a long, long time. It leads to a heart attack and not a happy life. So that's the first thing I did. We take vacations whenever we can. We go on vacation. We allow ourselves to work. My wife's got a very high-powered, stressful job, but we work we'll get up, we normally up at 6. Between 6 and 8, that's when we're allowed to go check email and do those type of things. If something's super important throughout the day, then we kind of excuse ourselves. But we're trying to be part with the family in the family life. It's very much like our Christian life. You want to make sure that you are available and there for what you're there for, and not just doing other things that you think are more important than that part of your life. So it's not a segment thing. I'm trying to think how I would put this. You just have to know your value is probably the most important part of this too, is knowing that your customers will value you more if you set the boundaries ahead of time. You did it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for them to know that. so that I know that I won't get any calls after a certain time of night because I've told my customers I'm not going to answer the phone.
That's right. Look, here's the thing about leadership is that we get to set the expectation.
Yeah.
And so that expectation, we set it. And people can either agree or disagree. If they disagree, then it's not a fit. And so we have to be very clear about that expectation that we set. And once we set the expectation, we've got to honor the expectation. Otherwise, back to that integrity piece, it's a lack of integrity on our own parts, right? But here's what's interesting that I found about the getaway or the break that's necessary to decompress, to recharge. We don't give ourselves enough of that time, but that time, not only does it help us to re-energize, but I've had some of my best ideas when I'm gone and away from the minutia, away from all the noise.
Yes.
And then there's like an epiphany moment. And oftentimes it's with the business.
So for Liz and I, we used to drive. So my mother-in-law and my father-in-law live in Florida. So we go see one and we go see the other. And, but it's the drive. We used to drive down there, drive back and forth. And it's being able to bounce and talk to her. It's going on. I mean, actually, on the drive down, typically not. On the drive back is when we start talking about work and getting into it. She'll bounce ideas off me. I'll bounce stuff off her. And then it's coming up with that plan around that. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Or I never thought of it this way. Again, she's my sounding board for just about everything. She's extremely smart, as you all know, Nate. But that's who I tend to go to. She's my mentor, I guess. I mean, in that sense, we never got to mentoring, which is, I think, another part that's extremely important for any entrepreneur. But just being able to kind of sound those thoughts out. I was thinking about X. What do you think? That won't work, and here's why. Helps. Yeah. You may not agree. You may go off and do it anyway because you're gung ho and said, "No, I think this will work." But it's having a different voice in your head, not just the voices that are inside your company. That's where I got a lot of, I guess, some of my best ideas there, and I guess some of the worst ideas I've ever had there. So it goes two ways. Typically, actually, it was normally the ones that I was gung-ho that I wanted to go do were, she was right and I was wrong.
Yeah.
I'll never admit it, but
now we have it recorded. Yeah.
But the other part so mentoring. Yes. So we never got to that. And I think for any entrepreneur out there who's listening to this, get a really good mentor. Somebody, either one who's lived it or two thinks they've lived it. You want the one who's lived it. They're the best ones. I was very fortunate early in my career, and actually early in this company's. We had a customer. The gentleman he was actually one of our customers, and he owned a business. He's actually not a customer anymore, but he's an older gentleman, and we went and talked to him on a cold call, no less. It does work, by the way. And he became a customer, and that was great. But I would go talk to him. So, how did you start your business? Why are you so successful? Where is this coming from? And he was gracious enough to give me all the time I needed to really feel good about what I was doing. Because he did it. He lived it. He was 40 years into his business. And he told me how he started and where the growth came from and why he was doing what he was doing, what he was selling, how these things, the progression of the company, how he got to 3 or 4 different states and beyond. And it helped. It really helped me sound out why. Because I think the one thing we all forget is everything sounds great on paper. But nobody sits back and goes, well, why am I doing this? And I think the why is probably the most important part of any business. It's typically the question we never ask ourselves. We never say, well, why did I do this? Why am I starting this? Why do I want to put myself into this much stress and strain? Because a lot comes with it. But I was able to answer that question. The why for me was that I wanted to pass the business on to my son when he became old enough to take over the business. That's why I was doing this. I wanted to have I wanted to pay for his education. That was another part of it. I wanted to help him and when he gets married and we can help, maybe with the first home. There's a lot of the whys in there were important to me and I knew what they were. There were a lot of personal whys. The business side of this was because I want to create the best environment for people to come and work. Because I worked for a lot of really crappy companies in my career, not in the sense of they weren't financially sound and they weren't, as far as the marketplace looked at them, great companies. They were just really horrible places to go to work. You you didn't wake up every morning going, yeah, I want to go there and work. It was, oh, I got to go to work. And I never wanted that for any of my employees. I wanted them to feel good about where they were going. And if they got to the point where it's like, I don't want to go to work, then, helping them find another position somewhere else, not a bad thing. By the way, my brother is a recruiter and he works for Blue Origin. So he's actually in the space program. So if you really want to get into that world, give me a shout. Mark is my brother. He's amazing. And he can help you with that. But
always a sales.
I'm giving my brother a shout out here.
Man, I love it.
He's so yeah.
The mentorship piece is essential.
You have to have it.
It's essential. I wrote about this in depth in my dissertation.
I know.
And and you had mentioned your spouse. These are also mentors for us, because you think, well, a mentor's been places. Well, they've been places with us, and especially our spouse. They know us. Yep. We would at least like to think that, and sometimes better than ourselves in some ways.
They're more honest about who we are than we are.
Yeah. So having those conversations around that, and I can point to very specific milestones in my dissertation, Milton Hershey, Walt Disney, and Steve Jobs, where their spouses were integral in the conversations around how these entrepreneurs became household names, right?
Yep.
I mean, globally resonant. And then other individuals who, as you said, begin to illuminate new paths, even through a very short conversation of someone whom you respect. For example, Steve Jobs, when he went back to Apple, and I mentioned Jobs a couple times, when he went back to Apple, his Mike Markkula, who was his partner in the beginning, he was actually firing from the board, but then went to his house and asked him, hey, look, I need some advice because you've always been a mentor to me. And Markkula said, you've got to treat Apple like it's going to cocoon into a butterfly, and it's got to have a metamorphosis. And this is where the idea of a lifestyle brand came into effect, to have a new rebirth for Apple. But it comes down to mentorship and having those conversations with your mentor that will ultimately possibly make an illumination of something that is far greater than you ever thought possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could not agree with you more. Yeah. It's they always say know thyself, and I think the other part of this, don't lie to yourself. If you're getting this, you got to get into this with the right understanding of what. Again, it's about where you want to go and who you want to be, but it's more than that. It really is. It's a complete and utter change to your life. You don't. I didn't think so. I can tell you this, that as a company we grew. I didn't take a paycheck for a long, long time, and my W-2s will actually are true because he'll tell you that. But I got to one point, and I actually sat down with our then COO, I guess, but he sat me down and said, look, you got to take a paycheck of some description. I don't care what it is. We became the S Corp, and then you sat me down and said, no, you've got to take a paycheck. And so that's when I sat down and said, okay, what am I actually worth? And the paycheck I wrote for myself that day, that month, that year was like, no, I'm worth more than that. But you have to build yourself to that point too. So for me, it was about success in the company and getting that off the ground and running. And then it was the next transition. Okay, so I'm here. I want to get to here. How do I get there? So you're writing that plan to get there. So again, business plans are very important. So write the first one of, I get to this point, point A. Point B is a completely different, how am I going to get there? So you have to write a different business plan. And I'm actually at D right now. This is my D plan of, I've got ABC. I think we're at a brand new point for us. And COVID actually helped because it really made me adjust my thinking, because it's going to be a different world when we come out of this, or we are coming out of it. So the world has changed dramatically since we walked into it in 19. So what do we want to do for 22? And there's a lot of changes coming. So how do I make the company evolve? And evolution is extremely important. You got to be aware of that and understand it. And that doesn't matter what business you're in, because everything's changing. So be ready for change. Don't be scared of it. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not, because you're ready. The first hurdle is becoming the entrepreneur. The second hurdle is what do I do with it? Right. So that's kind of where you are as an entrepreneur. It's evolution every day. And you're right. You're looking to metamorphosize into something different.
Yeah.
And that's where we are as a company. So I know Ted looks at my numbers every month and goes, "What are you doing?" But I do have a plan. I'm working the plan.
It's a crazy plan, and it's going to work. 2 closing questions for you. One,
Okay.
where can people find you?
At your local bar. No, kidding. I don't drink anymore. Actually, that's one thing I don't do. I gave up alcohol. As an entrepreneur, that's really big. So anyway,
Ditto.
We just changed our website. So the new site is, get this right, connectedconsultingservices.com.
Does Call Connected still work?
Yeah, you can callconnected.com works as well. They both point to the right place. We just got a new website, so we're all giddy excited about that. That's the number one place. And then you can call 314-925-4887. Extension 1 goes to sales. 2 goes to our engineers. So those are the 2 places for numbers and website. We're on all the socials. So if you look at, I think, Connected or Call Connected, we're out there on those as well. We're St. Louis based. So you can go to LinkedIn. We're out there as well. So
good. All right. Second question. Not so easy to answer, but
Lord,
it's going to hit you. One day, you, me, everyone else will be at the top of this great summit, right? The end of the journey. And as you look down, you look back, what will you be thankful that people said about you?
Boy, you hit me with one today. He was a good person that did things right. And he did things right along the way. He didn't shortchange people. You know, you got what you asked for. You got more than what you asked for, hopefully. But I think more than that, I've got an amazing family, and that's my legacy, is that I can look back at my life and go, I helped, not so much, I mean, build the company is one thing. It's probably more important that I lived a good life, and the people that I came into contact with can say the same thing about me. They can look at me and go, he was a good person. We really enjoyed his company, and we're just happy he lived the way he lived. I think that's probably the most important thing for me. I mean, everybody can make money. That's is important. Sure, it's the most important thing. No, and every entrepreneur will say that too. Oh no, it's not the money. You want a nice living, but I think ultimately it's about your legacy with your family and making sure that you've done everything you can for your family. For me, it's about my son. I want him to be the best person he can possibly be, but be happy in what he does with his life. That's more important to me than anything else I'm doing. I mean, that's ultimately where I am.
You, my friend, are on your way.
I'm trying.
Thanks for coming on the show. This has been awesome. I got to have you back. We got to talk more about
That's
entrepreneurship.
Fine. Let's do it.
Awesome. Good seeing you, brother.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Well, my friend, we did it again. I'm so glad you joined me on this episode of A Call to Leadership. If you've been with me on the show, listening in, you'll know this. But if you're new, you may not know that I created a free course for you that you don't need to provide an email address. It's Sala, and this is A Call to Leadership.